acceptance.
Hey everyone, welcome to the tech capital of the world, Kernersville, North Carolina. I'm Bobby Davis, the CEO and founder of Coder Foundry. And Kevin, there's a lot of fear out there in this marketplace. I sense much fear, at least to the dark side.
Oh, does it? I don't know. But we just get worried about stuff and stuff.
We make bad decisions when we're afraid of everything. So I want to make some good decisions today.
Yeah. So that's what we thought we'd title our kind of like all kind of base our video around today, with some of the news that people keep seeing, and like you get asked all the time, like, oh, I saw a comment just yesterday, I think, on one of our videos, just like, well, there's no point even like bothering with this anymore, because I think this particular one was the one that we hear a lot lately was around AI taking the jobs. So between AI and between all the layoffs, people are just like, this just like isn't a thing anymore. I'm out. Like,
right,
okay,
I'm out.
Cool.
Here's the advice that I'm going to have just off brand new advice before we start talk about coding is, in the world, you have to do something for a living, right? You know?
Yep.
And so like you have to have a job. Of course, some people say, well, I can be a nomad. I get it. But like for most of us, we got to have we got to work and we got to have a job. We need a paycheck, doing something for somewhere, somehow. And if you believe that the tech industry is going to collapse because of a few layoffs at some really big companies and some technology innovation, you just need to be a little student of history. Like these things happen. It always comes back. I mean, like there was, believe it or not, in 2002, there was a tech bubble, and people, maybe you're not old enough to remember it, but like the tech bubble happened, and that was the end of everything. A lot of companies went out of business. A lot of them broke up. A lot of companies just went away, and then it survived. It actually grew from there. I mean, it just like
it's way bigger now than it ever was. So
yeah. And what in general, my thing that I want people to understand is like, no matter what you see today, don't make a 10-year decision based on like a news report from that we're going to look at here in a second. It's not something you need to be necessarily concerned about.
Right.
We can read about it, but when Microsoft has slowing sales, it's like, okay, I mean, we're not talking like big money to them. Like this
exactly. So let's talk about that, because that was a big news from yesterday, right? Microsoft laid off 10,000.
Yep.
The company kind of article to this, which we saw just before we came on, was that Apple was the only company not to have layoffs yet so far in big tech. Yeah. It's like, okay, wow, is that just coming, or are we just like, I don't know, are they not going to? They not overhire? I don't know. Because that's what's happening with all these others. Everyone overhired. Yeah. And that's why this is. This 5%. It's not all tech. I don't know if they've said.
It's a lot of what we saw before: recruiting, HR. There's just a lot of things that went into it.
Yeah. I haven't actually read all of the story from New York Times, but I read through different.
There were some engineers included in this, probably certain departments. Like when you really dive into like Google's layoffs, and when you start looking at it, a lot of it was in this R&D department that was making things that weren't monetizable. So they're like, okay, we've had enough of that.
It's like for the future, right? Where they need to kind of bring back to their core, like where they make money.
Right. So here's the thing about Microsoft, and this isn't, we're investors in Microsoft, just to say, but don't invest. What we're saying is the cloud business is strong, dude. Like it is super strong. They're making investments all over the place in technology and software development. And they're super well positioned to be a dominant force over the next decade. This isn't like, oh, they're going out of business next week. Nadella's, typing up his resume. I don't think that's the case here. Yeah. So they're dominant. So what does that say about the overall marketplace? Still pretty strong, man. Like, if you're basing everything on what Microsoft does, then you're basing it wrong. You need to look at the market as a whole, the society as a whole. And the question you need to ask yourself about dev jobs is, do we think 10 years from now we'll have more or less systems that were written by custom software? Right. That's the question. Like, here's
what somebody will argue with that. They'll just say, yeah, but the AI is going to write it. That's what they're going to say, which we'll talk about in a second.
AI is going to write it.
but yeah, we will. But AI is going to write it. We'll talk about that in a second because you know where we fall on the AI thing.
Yeah.
And we showed this statistic on one of our last videos. We showed this article on one of our last videos, or an article about this thing from one of our last videos. But the number one job still software developer, despite the layoffs, despite all this other stuff. This came out obviously before the 10,000 at Microsoft, but during this whole other thing, they still predict 370,000 new jobs. It's like it's still a big deal.
It's not going anywhere. Like in the tech bubble in '02 was worse than this. I mean, like it was. We're talking about like the VCs were upset. Lots of companies went out of business. They were gone away. This is just I think it's a downsizing, and I would say downsizing is not really. They overhired over the pandemic, and now they can reduce price, which will help their stock price if they can show a quarterly profit that beats expectations. Earnings season will come out here. I think next week Microsoft and all those guys report Q1 reports, which also gives you a look back on last year, that kind of stuff. And I think they made lots of money last year, and that's just what this is about. When you're managing big companies like this, you got to manage expectations.
I didn't read this article. I didn't validate this, but that would make sense. We talked about this with the other thing, like with all the other layoffs. They hired 40,000, laid off 10, and like in some other places, like the net was always up over the course of the last kind of 3 years. It's like it's misleading when you see like this massive layoff. It comes from overhiring. Although, Luke does say his friend got let go from Microsoft yesterday, C# dev. So, but that's going to happen. And Luke, let us know what he does next. I'm interested to see like
what next is. I'd be curious to know, Luke, what department he was in. What was he working on? That tells us a little bit of inside knowledge. Like what did they lay off for? What and then. So like you got to understand Microsoft, you could be working in a department that they're just getting rid of. It just doesn't perform well or whatever. And they just don't need you to do that. I can tell you this though, that guy's not going to have a problem. If he's got Microsoft on his resume, he'll get hired immediately. So
yeah. And that's why I wonder, like, what does it look like for a C# dev coming out of Microsoft? I would think that's
strong.
I would think that would be strong. Yeah. I think people would want that because we know that the market's hot in other areas for sure. In other non-FANG companies, people are definitely still hiring. So, yeah. So what else we wanted to do here today, when we're talking about this as well, is obviously throw any questions in chat. We want to do questions as well, whether it can be on topic, off topic. We know we haven't done like a full Q&A in a while, so that's kind of I thought let's kind of do that loosely, kind of around this topic. We've talked about this before, but we thought we'd come on and but
if you have an entertaining question, and Kevin likes it, we'll put it up there, and see what I think about it.
I have to like it, though. Like I do have to.
Yeah, I have to like it. Kevin, you got to remember, he's the gatekeeper here. I do see some of the questions coming up over here if you want to ask one. And then obviously you can always super chat it, and then we're required to answer it, I guess, right?
So. Well, yeah, we are. If you super chat it, we are required to answer. Well, we're required to acknowledge it. Depends on what the question is. That's funny. I might be speaking to Paul later today. So
that's not inaccurate. It probably is the best tech podcast from Kernersville. Like I would say that's an accurate
I hope it's true. I hope that's true. If somebody's beating San Kernersville, we got big problems. Like we got bigger problems if there's a better show coming out of Kernersville. If you can find it anywhere, please let us know, anybody, because we'd love to partner with them.
Yeah, like exactly. We'll see who else is out there competing with us.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's
got lots of questions in there. But
let's jump to some questions and some other things here. So let's start here. Antoine says, "Good morning. I'm getting the book tracker ready for my portfolio. It's a struggle to get all the charts responsive."
Okay, use a plugin. We used, I think, Chart.js is in that current version. We're using it, and just work with Chart.js to make sure that it gets them responsive.
Does Chart.js handle the responsiveness part then?
Well, it handles the display, so if it's not working, figure out a different chart plugin. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I always remember seeing, like, one of the big things that I always remember seeing with the charts on people's bug trackers are they always end up being a couple of pixels off. I don't know what it is. This must be something in the process of putting it on the screen always makes it like it puts it in like a frame, a scrollable frame. Yeah. Like it's a common thing. So watch out for that bug. I don't know what that problem's caused by. I'm not that versed on it, but I do see that in a lot of people's bug trackers. Yeah, they're trying to fit it into a container that's a little bit.
Ridge said the cookie people beside us have a better show. The
Maybe.
cookie crumble.
I mean, they are.
Cookie.
You know, it is big cookie.
Big cookie.
It is
big cookie.
It is crumble, so they are big cookie. They do have a budget. You know what I mean? They're like they could have big budget. They could, yeah. They could be sending out like, "Hey, watch our show. We'll send you free cookies." We don't have that promise.
Right. That's
like,
right.
We can't compete with free cookies.
Yeah, we're deleting cookies. That's what we want to do. We delete our cookies on our browser. So.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Exactly. That's funny, Ridge Rider. That's hilarious. Yeah. So here's the thing, though. He's struggling to get all the charts respond. Just work with it. Try to do it. Make sure that your charts are in divs that stack, and then you can control the div that each chart is in to make sure it stacks correctly. And then inside that div, you can work with the chart vendor to make sure that it is squeezing it out. But check it on mobile first. Get it working on mobile first, and then expand it out to the desktop, and then you can see kind of what the view is. But in general, if you have 3 charts on a page on mobile, they're just going to stack on top of each other. So put each chart in a div, make sure they stack on mobile correctly, and then hopefully that will allow it to squeeze in that space, and the chart vendor can handle that and how it's displayed in that space. So we'll see.
Well, Ridge Raider kind of jests about this. There's also a good point in here to be made.
Yeah.
If you're out, there's a better chance for the rest of us. This is true. This comes back to like, are you willing to take the gamble on this or not?
Yeah.
Because that's what it comes down to, right? Are you willing to bet that this will be something, that AI isn't going to take your jobs, that big tech isn't going to go away? Are you willing to make that bet or not? And the people that are, I think, win. I do. I know I know it is a gamble, but is it really?
Not really. I mean, like, you know, like I saw a speech from Steve Jobs where he talked about like he just did the things that he wanted to do, which I think is very interesting about from someone as successful as him. You know, where what else am I going to do? I'm an engineer, like, and so when he got fired from Apple, he went out and did stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, he did Next, and he did Pixar.
And, yeah,
you know, pretty big deals.
How's that for a follow-up? You get fired from Apple and you just make Pixar.
Exactly.
I mean, that's like your wife divorces you and then you show up 2 weeks later with a supermodel. I mean, like, you know, like that's how's that?
Right.
I mean, like,
Geez. But don't forget, he also made Next as well, which then Apple then bought. Basically bought.
Yeah, they had to buy it from it. I know we fired you, Steven.
It's a genius
buy your company.
It's absolute genius. Yeah.
You know, so it's just kind of funny. So my point is out here is if you like coding and you're into this, I think you need to ignore what AI could or couldn't do. Because I do believe this. On YouTube, our influencers and a lot of people that are really smart people are overhyping what AI is going to do. I think there's going to be some people that are going to be sorely mistaked. And the reason they're hyping it is because if you put a video out on YouTube that says ChatGPT and the 7 ways you can make $1 million, we can make that video right now. It's probably getting 500,000.
It'll get a ton of views, exactly.
You know, and so like, and then we make up the seven things that you're going to do, the 7 ways you can make $1 million, and we just come up with 7 things, and it's like, you know, it's maybe that's accurate. But like, I don't think it is. I mean, I
don't think so. Even just while we're talking about this, I will show this article. We weren't going to show this, but I will because we're talking about this right now. But talking about ChatGPT or GPT-4, literally the CEO said people are begging to be disappointed, and they will be. So it's like there's this hype cycle around this where they're saying it's the next big thing. Like in 3 years' time, it's going to take all of our jobs. And literally the CEO of the company who was hyped this thing to the moon before this comment has been like,
you got $10 billion from Microsoft.
He's like, slow your roll. You're going to be disappointed. It's not. GPT-4 is going to come out and you're going to say like, oh, that's an incremental update. Yeah, because it is.
So here's the 2 things that we could talk about as far as AI taking our jobs or some kind of like pervasive tech that changes everything that's going to take our jobs. And let's talk specifically about developers. What if, and a lot of people ascribe the 3rd and 4th version to AI. Like, oh, when he gets to the 4th version, Bobby, the robots are going to rule the world. They're like, okay, well, how far are we away from that? And that's why I always ask, if people say 5 years it's going to happen, 30 years it's going to happen. If that outlook is 30 years, that means that you're pretty safe in doing it. And so what I think is before you run off and sell your home and try to move to the farthest away from technology to escape the robot apocalypse, maybe learn how to code. Because the thing that you don't understand is these people that are making these hype claims a lot of times aren't developers, and they've never written a line of code in their life. So they see someone write up FizzBuzz and like, wow, that answered an interview question. And we know if you've out there, the guys that are out there listening, you're a developer, you're like, there's more harder things than FizzBuzz and reverse a string and like, or even like, how do I order the linked list? I mean, there's a lot of things out there that aren't, oh, thanks, Luke.
Exactly. Luke, thank you. GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT have only made me like 2% more productive, if that.
Exactly. So the thing that I'm reading now is, so like you can tell that the arguments are adjusting around this. And I didn't want to just talk about ChatGPT, but it's so much on my mind, it drives me so crazy.
Is there any truth?
No.
We'll come back to this in a second. I'll add it to the queue.
Let me tell you about it. I'll tell you about a guy that got hired yesterday. Like, that's kind of funny. Straight from myself, of course. Yeah. So the thing that people think is they're ascribing artificial intelligence to this thing.
It is called AI. So
AGI.
Yeah, AGI. So they're saying like an artificial general intelligence, and that's right. People jump to that conclusion. They're right. They're mistaken. It's and literally OpenAI is saying, hold, slow your roll. That's not what we've got here. We do not have an AGI.
And so some of the comments that we've had in the chat, and they're valid, and they're based on fear of not knowing how this industry really works. And they're like, well, Bobby, what you don't understand, this is, and that you've seen the chat that you don't understand.
I've seen them.
If you're seeing ChatGPT 3, OpenAI has ChatGPT 7 down here that they're already working on that's going to blow your mind. And I'm like, well, what if ChatGPT 3 and GitHub Copilot is the pinnacle of what they have? Which I think it is. If someone paid $10 billion for you to make a product that you can monetize, it's not like you're going to hold it back. This isn't like a stealth fighter that you need to keep under wraps for 20 years. Right. I mean, you need to put it out there so people can find it, and use it. Yeah. I think it's the best thing that they have right now. And I think that GitHub Copilot is the final form of this for a long time.
Right. What's Paul saying? Luke, do I usually get 100% around my developer skills? Oh, I made 100 times my developer skills. You should have gone for the 10x dev. Paul's now the 10x developer. Dev. He's literally AI'd his way into 10x developer. Yeah. That's funny. Luke says, how many short-term contracts are okay on a resume? I will come to this one too in a second.
Okay, that's a good question. It is a good question.
We'll come to that in a second. But thank you for the super chats. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Luke, and thank you, No Justice, which we'll come to in a second.
So I think here, and I'm going to end it with this. Here's what I think, and we're going to make a longer video about this. These are a lot of the ideas that we've already covered, and we just need to record it.
We have a script.
Yeah, ChatGPT and AI in general related to coding. So let's just remove images. It's going to make movies. It's going to make write my blog automatically. Remove all of those because, again, I'm not a blog writer, a professional, so I don't really know the nuances of that.
Which just by the way, CNET tried an experiment writing blogs, and people were like, well, they suck. And even the CNET editors had to come back and fix them all. So it's not even as good as people think it is at writing blogs, just to say.
No, it's not. And we've actually tried to use it, like writing some of the script here for our pre-recorded videos, and sometimes
it sucked.
It's pretty good. And then sometimes we get like, what in the heck did you ask that thing? That's terrible.
Like, what did you feed it to give it that? And then we looked at it and like, wow, okay, it made a really bad assumption about what I meant by that point right there.
Yeah.
And it totally sandwiched things together that it didn't want. Right. You didn't want to sandwich together. It made some really weird conclusions from really obvious bullet points, I think. But
So when we're talking about replacing developers, okay, and this is what you guys are talking about. Like, I am not going to learn to code because AI is going to do my job. And so you're not a developer yet. You're listening to hype on tech Twitter and YouTube and all these people saying, dude, this thing is magic. It's going to take over everything. There's three things that I think right now that it can't do. It can't integrate into a solution as it sits right now. And we can only base, the only reason you should stop learning the software development is because of something today that it can do today. And so when you can type in a prompt and it can sort of generate some code, but then you got to take that code and put it into a website. And I'm telling you, they're going to need developers to do it. The second thing about these prompts, when you look at these developers doing this, you need to look at the prompt first before you look at the result. Because it generated a bunch of code isn't the magic. You got to look at the prompt these people are putting into it. And a lot of times they don't show you, but the ones that have, it's like, it's way technical. It's like War and Peace, in this thing, with, character development and
it has to be.
And even then, it's wrong half the time. And then you have to integrate it to make it work into something. Third is like DevOps, publishing, getting it out there, making it live. It's not going to do that right now. It doesn't do that at all. And then finally is when it's wrong, if you're using a black box to create more black boxes, how do I fix the black box when it's wrong, when it's not working like intended, or I need to make an enhancement? How do I do that when I don't have any knowledge of doing this?
You don't understand it.
There is no way. They're going to have to hire developers to rewrite the black boxes the AI generated because
Here's
the
the
AI.
Thing. You're right. If you don't understand the output, you're not going to know how to fix it. And that's the promise, right? The promise of ChatGPT saying, like, oh, it can replace developers. No, it can't. It can only ever be a tool because the output still has to be understood by a developer to fix it when it's wrong. Because there's this thing, like you've learned nothing. You ask it to write you FizzBuzz, it'll write you FizzBuzz, right? But if you don't understand how it's written it and what it's done, you could never ever fix it.
Right.
You couldn't. And here's the other thing: you talk about it being wrong too, or add to it. Yeah, enhance it. You talk about it being wrong too. I saw an example where it literally could not multiply two numbers together correctly. It gave a very confident answer that the product of these two numbers was this number. It was wrong by about 5 or 6 digits. It literally couldn't do the basic math. It's like, if it can't do that, what else is it like confidently telling you about that you just don't quite understand is wrong yet?
So
we know it's a lot.
If you write right now, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, write me an article with citations, it makes up the citations. They're fake.
Hold on. If you go to ChatGPT now, just to show you, you can't. Yeah. That's the other issue there.
Another problem. It's like, I'm kind of busy, dude. Like, step off my lawn, slow your roll. Yeah. So in other words, what you need to understand about it is when you say add the citations to an article, it is copying the form of a citation. A real citation has to look at the article itself and say, where did I get this information from? And let me cite that. And all it's doing is copying a term paper and saying, this is what a citation looks like. And the form is correct, but the information is wrong. And so like it can write code, but sometimes it's wrong. So like, I think that GitHub Copilot is probably the pinnacle of this, what you're seeing. There'll be some other enhancements that will fix micro problems very well, maybe. But macro, when you say build me an app that does X, Y, A, B, and C, it's a long way from that, and there's some serious advancements that don't exist in AI for it to be able to do that. So anyway, let's give some people some jobs here. Let's
do some questions. You guys are saying good stuff in chat here, by the way. I got a ton of stuff queued up here. Yeah. So thank you for the super chat. No, just Justin. Is there any truth to companies not hiring new developers for backend? You want to talk about the one that got hired yesterday? Yeah,
so this guy sent me a LinkedIn message yesterday. I'll just use his first name, Bart, and I've chatted up with him. He went to our, full disclosure, went to our self-paced class, not in person. But his comment was, I think it was a really large company in Florida. He made above average salary, over 60,000, which is kind of cool. And he made this thing. I demoed the Contact Pro and they loved it. And I got hired. So one of the things that, if you don't know what Contact Pro is, you can go look it up on our course or whatever. But basically, it's an address book, has a back end, has security, and those kind of things. They are totally hiring back end developers. That is not automated in any stretch. Any way can it ever be automated when you really work on large back end projects? It's just too complex for them to do it. So they're hiring full stack devs still to this day. And they will continue for the foreseeable future. I would say no justice, and I would say I'm pretty confident in this. We've got a decade or more of job growth for developers, a decade or more. And like if you spend a decade writing code, doing something, you're going to have options if the robot apocalypse does happen. You know, if it does
the
say
next thing is
devs are
coming
over.
along. The next screen shift's coming. We talked about that a bunch too. So that's
Yeah,
another,
exactly.
like there's more
So,
than
like,
opportunity.
let's say
That's
that
if it stays
what we said
stagnant right now.
before,
You're saying you predict 10
what will
years.
shut ChatGPT up is when Apple releases an AR device, and suddenly the screen moves from your desktop or from your phone to wherever you walk or wherever you're at, and that information is completely context sensitive. And then you can see overlays in real life. You can see the coupon in the grocery store. You know, we talked about a couple of shopping apps that would be kind of cool. We could see people making those things, but all of that thing will shut ChatGPT up. And I promise you, follow these people that were on ChatGPT right now. The 7 businesses you can make right now with ChatGPT will be the 7 businesses you can make with Apple's AR glasses right now to make $1 million. And they'll make the same video for the same tech. All of this means that I want you to think about this too, Justin. Think about that ChatGPT in general, OpenAI rolls out an API interface for this, which means they want to roll it out to developers, which means the developer has to code. Now, I saw a video the other day that says, I asked ChatGPT to write me a client on the ChatGPT AI or API, which is kind of funny. Like, you know, it's like this, this circular argument, whatever. But the thing it generates is just, you know, basic code or for fetching it and that kind of stuff. It's not great. But in general, even OpenAI realizes that they're going to need developers to build products and services on top of the thing that they've built in order for them to monetize this any way, shape, or form. So, like, they're going to rely on there being 100,000 developers working on the API to build AI type centric solutions. So,
because that's how they're selling it, right? That's how they're selling the pro version.
That
is the API access.
True to some degree. Like when these guys says you can make money using the API, and that's true.
You can as a developer.
Yeah, as a developer, you know. So, like, you know. But yeah, there's no truth to this. I don't know what you're referencing. If you have an article, I'd love to read it, or like what you think the metrics are. But like, companies are hiring back-end people still. It's not all front-end. It's not all JavaScript. It's not all HTML, CSS. It is full stack is where it's at, where you know both front-end and back-end. So,
yep. See, Luke's question: how many short-term contracts are okay on a resume? Finishing my second contract, not sure to stick around as an employee or take another contract.
Depends on you, man. I mean, like, contracts are good. I'm assuming these are 6-month gigs. Let's say you have 2 6-month gigs. Now, you could stick around as an employee and stay there for a year. I mean, that does look good, but it also doesn't mean that you can't. You can always explain it away, like, I'm just in contracting.
I think this is one of the things where you can explain it, right? You can say, oh, it's just a contract, just a contract, just a contract. It's one of the only industries where you kind of can get away with that, and it's acceptable.
Now, here's what I would say, Luke, and this is just me looking at resumes. We're interviewing for a bunch of .NET devs right now, and I do see some contractors' resumes. And the question that comes to my head is, did you ever get renewed at one of these contracts? And if that doesn't happen, but it's over a 10-year period, to me, that's a red flag. So there should be somewhere in one of these contracts where someone says, yeah, I know it was initially 6 months. Do you think you could stick around another 6 months? You know, and then I think that could be pretty good if you want to.
Would you show that maybe then on your resume as like 6-month contracts extended to 12 months? So you could kind of like,
you would typically say I worked at, you know, ABC company for 18 months.
Okay.
You know,
I'm just thinking like, how would you show on your contract that it was like extended? I guess you would have to show that somehow on.
I wouldn't show it as extended. I'd just show a longer stint somewhere.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That even if you're contracting, you had a longer term contract.
Okay.
And these guys that know that the typical contract comes in a couple of flavors, 3 or 6 months. Typically, you don't sign a 1-year agreement and then you get renewed. And I can tell you that I've been at a company that we dearly love, and I have contractors out there, and we've been there for 5 years. So, like, we've renewed that contract, renewed it every 12 months. So, like, you know, so, like, I think that's really good. So, I think it can go either way. Here's my advice, Luke. Your experience is your experience. If you're getting hired for contracts to contracts, don't erase one of those because you think it looks bad. Keep them on there and just do the best thing that you want to do at the time that you have the choice. So if you have a choice to stay as an employee, or the contract's just better, or you're interested in the new one, take the new contract. You know, it's not gonna hurt you long term. I don't think so.
Right. Okay. Let's go for this one.
Very cool.
Simon wants to know, did you see the Boston Dynamics Atlas video yesterday? It's scary how good their robot engineering is getting. Did you see this? I don't know if you saw this. We haven't.
No, I haven't seen it. Do you have it?
Okay, I do. Hold on. Because it's
okay.
it's legit. Like, hold on a minute. You combine this with ChatGPT, and I think we're done. There's gonna be no sound on this, by the way. But it's.
Or so he's running it. He's actually.
He's not.
driving
No. He's not. He's just asked for it. He's like, hey, can you bring me that toolbox?
Okay, let's see if it
that's
can
what
do
he's
it.
done. So let's see what it does. It's kind of crazy how this thing moves. Like,
oh, it's figuring out how to get the tool. Oh, okay.
yeah,
Let's see what it's doing now.
Grabs the tool bag, and it obviously this is not like this is pre-programmed. Obviously, like it's not like it's not thinking this stuff. It knows this is a set of maneuvers that it's doing. Right? It's not AI in it. But this is interesting. Look, it pushes the box down, and now it knows where the box is, which is kind of cool. Box. That's kind of interesting. See, when it can do that, we're in trouble. Like,
well, here's what I think, man, Kevin. This is not OSHA safe. I mean, him walking across that board is not OSHA safe.
Well, hey,
they got a bunch of violations right then and there.
We've talked about this before. Regulation is the killer of these things. Regulation is the killer of innovation, right? It just is.
So what we want to do is make a parkour robot. It's like.
Hey, I mean, it's proof of concept in terms.
He also
of
threw the tool bag at the guy. You know,
I mean, it was maybe he said like, "Hey, throw the tool bag." I mean, I don't know the way he phrased it, but that could be a literal issue too.
I'm just saying, it's a good thing he didn't ask him to get the chainsaw. Hey, can you get the chainsaw down there for me? He throws a running chainsaw up at him. It's like.
Well, maybe.
So anyway.
Maybe. Bree, thank you for the $10, by the way, for the super chat.
Thanks, man.
Much appreciated.
Thanks a lot.
If you have a question, throw it up too. I don't know if you do or you just wanted to get us tacos. I know you're like a taco sponsor. We should put you up as a permanent taco sponsor, I think.
Yeah. I think Richard, hey, bring me the saw. No, not like that. Exactly.
Yeah,
you need to ask some clarification there.
Well, it's no, that's true. Because you'd be like, could you throw me the saw? Yeah, and it's like, and it like throws it at you. Like I know I said it, but I didn't literally mean throw it at me.
Right.
Or this, yeah. Like, it's got a bit sentient. I can't
That's
do that,
deep
Dave.
right there. I love that. I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave.
I like it. We've got a fully sentient Boston Dynamics robot. Then we're in trouble. Then we are definitely in trouble.
But I think the Boston robot it's kind of cool. I would say that I think it's neat. And so people think that this is going to do everything. And I put a tweet out the other day: Can a robot fix my plumbing? Those kind of three things. Fix my car.
That one might be able to. I don't know.
Maybe he can plunge it, I guess. So maybe he can
combine it with AI. We're in trouble. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Skynet's coming.
So, but I do believe that those are pre-programmed in general. I think. This is a magic show. You have to understand, it's cool, but it's not sentient by any stretch of the imagination. So, how many scenarios can it program in there? A lot. Yeah.
I like this part. Stairs are meant to be protection against rogue robots. This is true. We should have protections that are obvious, like stairs against robots. We should never teach a robot to climb stairs. I'm with you on this, Simon. That could have been our savior, couldn't it? And we've been like, well, the robots are taking over. So like, all right, just go up to the second floor. We're safe.
Yeah, but we got to be ADA compliant, man. For the wheelchair people, you have to have ramps. I mean, like that's just the way it is. I mean, you can't have just steps everywhere. You got to have an elevator.
This is true. Yeah, but the robots can't use those either. That's the other thing. They can't use those either. I think that's.
Well, when the robots attacked in one of the Terminators, those could hover. They would float around. For some reason,
they'll
we
solve
made
the issue.
Floating drone robots with 50 caliber machine guns on them and thought it was a great idea. That's what we thought.
Well, I don't know. The military. I don't know. They just they get.
And then we turned them loose to be autonomous. I mean, okay, that's great. That's a good idea.
I don't know. You seen these drones? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're not that far from that. Okay, let's do. Brendan had another question here. Mr. Kanesh, you guys have learned JS, CSS, React, Node.js, but I fear if I'm job ready, I'm self-taught. What should I build before I start applying? Question.
Oh, this is great because if you listen to the last comment, the guy built a Contact Pro, which you can go look at learn.codefoundry and go look at what it is. And I'm not saying you have to buy our course to do it. What I'm saying is take JS, CS, React, and Node and build something like that. So here's the things that you want it to do. Your app that you build must have a database behind it of some sort. Like, in other words, the back end part of this communicates to a database. The second thing that you need to implement is some kind of auth system, which is the person can log in, and based on their login, they have rights to do things. And that's, so authentication, authorization. So those are the two kind of features that I think any good app should have. With our Contact Pro, you can log in, and each person that logs in has their own list of contacts. So you authenticate to it, and then you're authorized to see contacts that only belong to you. It can email those contacts out of that. That's kind of a cool feature, and it's all stored in the back end of a database. So all of those kind of things would be pretty easy for you to build with those skill set. What we do in .NET with C#, you can do the same thing with a React, Node.js, and some kind of backend database like Postgres. You should be able to do that. Hope that helps, Brendan.
There you go. Maybe a similar question, but a little bit different. Best language to start to break into programming in 2023?
So it's not the best language, it's the best stack. So what we're going to tell you, Hayward, if you're starting from ground zero, okay, and you're saying, hey, I know nothing and I just want to be a developer, you need to pursue full stack development. It's going to take you a minute to get there. That's where the most job opportunities are. That consists of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some kind of server-side backend language. And that we think it's C#, but that could be Node.js with JavaScript. It could be Java. And then some kind of database right now. The free one that you can post around is PostgreSQL. I do think that when you look at NoSQL databases versus relational SQL databases, relational SQL databases are used a lot more than NoSQL databases. So if you got to pick one, which you need to pick and specialize, that's the one to pick. So, and right now the free one's Postgres, but you can move that to SQL Server, you can move that to MySQL. Those are kind of the same products that do the same thing by different companies. So JavaScript, HTML, CSS, so you can build a web page, make the web page do something with server-side processing. We think that's ASP.NET and C#, but it could be Node.js, it could be Swing Java. So that's what you need to do. And if you have nowhere to start and nowhere to go, I humbly say, go to learn.coderfoundry.com. We'll teach you the things so you can break in this year. Bart, what we talked about, just did this. And he demoed that thing and people are impressed. And it's kind of cool, man. Yeah. I mean, to me, make this less about religion and make it more about like, okay, what are the skills I have to have? Pick one skill set in that one stack and then interview for that stack and then get a job doing that. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Talking about tech podcasts, I don't know what this was related to, but I pulled it up anyway. It's close enough that I just want to see someone win. If they get a good tech podcast going, surely we'll bring in more viewers. I've searched for finding good tech podcasts. We're working on it. We're working on a tech podcast.
We're working on it, Ken. So
we're gonna
there
have
may be some
else.
announcements coming up here soon.
Yeah. We're gonna do something else in addition to this
podcast in your future.
Yep. So we hope people will listen to it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Brendan says, "Love your channel, great motivation." So thank you, Brendan.
Oh, thanks, man.
And thank you for the question,
appreciate it.
by the way, too. We definitely appreciate it. Thanks for being here. And also, just while we're talking about that too, Restless Tinker is back in a minute. It's been a while. On 90K, almost a big 100. Yeah, we're working on the 100.
Paul said this. He's backing up my database thing.
Hold on. All previous companies we worked for, we never use non-relationship databases.
Right. We use Transact SQL relational databases. That's the thing. It's interesting. I follow a guy on Twitch that's from Microsoft, Jeff Fritz, and he's building this thing called ClipTalk with Blazor. He's a watch on Twitch, does a lot of things. Really smart dude. Yep. But in the last month, he's building this thing on a NoSQL database, and I thought it was kind of funny. He works at Microsoft, and he tweeted about this. The Azure SQL guys has sent me some messages, and maybe I should.
I bet they did.
It's kind of funny. So he's in the process now of converting over to a relational database, and it's kind of funny. I don't know what his background is. This could be all for show.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's scripted. These could be.
I don't
scripted
think so,
bits,
though. I don't think it is. I don't think he's not that kind of guy.
But like he was like shocked and amazed. He was like, "Wow, this." This relational SQL thing is kind of cool, but this is what he was saying. And yeah, it might stick around. It's just SQL Server, dude. I mean,
yeah, just been here for a minute.
it's been here for a minute and it does millions and millions of petabytes of data. So it's kind of cool.
Yep. Okay, a couple of the comments here. Ben says every career had the same issues or at least the same problems that could lead you to not choose it. Coding has more opportunity. Yeah, true. Yeah, you could stop. You're right. You could stop being a journalist today because you think.
Yeah, they're going to take all journalists. The New York Times can be written by robots.
Yeah. Speaking of, it's like one of these things where we've talked about this, and this will be in our next video too. We've talked about the trained eye versus the untrained eye when we're talking about these things. It's like as an untrained. As a non-journalist, I look at an article written by ChatGPT and I'm like, wow, that's impressive. A journalist is like, that's rubbish. There was the article the other day, which we're going to talk about in a different context, but the article the other day, just to briefly talk about it, was ChatGPT wrote a song in the style of Nick Cave. Nick Cave said it was trash. That's not the word he used.
Right.
He used a much stronger word. But he basically said it wasn't very good. He didn't like it.
And when you read it, it wasn't. I mean, it really wasn't.
Right, and it's the trained eye versus the untrained eye. When we're not trained in something, we can look at the thing and be like, wow, that's magic. But as soon as we understand it, we're like, the part that we do understand it's creating, we're like, I don't know, that's a terrible song. As a songwriter, that's a terrible song. As a journalist, that's a terrible article. As a coder, that's a terrible piece of code.
Right. Now, I can tell you this, and you don't know this about me, Kevin, but in a former life, I created a magic show one time, all right? Oh. So I went and studied magic. All right.
Okay.
And I bought a bunch of books and learned like how some of these work because I built a magic show. And, I actually hired a guy and those kind of stuff. And we put the show on. About 10,000 people came to my magic show over 3 nights.
Okay.
But it's a true story. Like, I'm not making this up. So I learned a lot about magic. And one of the first tricks I learned was how the magic ball works. And so he'll show you the ball. And then he'll put it in your hand, and then you open your hand, and it has 2. And he takes it from you. He puts it back in your hand. Then it has 4. And then you open a cup, and now the ball's big, and all the other balls are gone. Like, I learned how that worked. And once I learned how that worked, I'm like, oh, so magic isn't magic.
Right. Again, the untrained eye thinks it's amazing. The trained eye is like, I see how you do that.
So, true story. To open my magic show up, I hired a professional magician that came in, and he did like real magic, and he was like super impressive. And then our show came on after it, and it was kind of lame compared to him. But we did one trick that we worked on for like 3 weeks, and what it was we held up a thing here, like a big thing, and had hands on it. And it was waving, and then when you put it down, he was disappeared, and suddenly he's standing in the audience.
Okay.
And here's what this magician said. He goes, he called it the runaround. He goes, wow, that was the best runaround I've ever seen. He says, how did you do it? And this is a professional musician. And so he knew how it was done, but we did it so well that he was impressed that a bunch of, dudes from Kernersville figured out some of these things, but basically the trick involves when you lift the thing up, the guy's hands aren't his hands, you drop it, there's a hole in the back of the stage, but you keep it up for 45 seconds and with music and everything. The guy's literally running around the building and just goes into the crowd and stands up, and we say ta-da, and and everyone's like crazy, So I've learned that magic is not magic. And so when you understand how something works with AI, you realize okay, there's a long way to go before teleportation is invented. We didn't teleport the guy to the back of the room. He ran around.
Just appeared it appeared like he teleported through the use of a trick.
It looked like teleportation. Yeah. It looked like Star Trek. And they're like, man, you've done Star Trek. You've invented teleportation. Nah, the guy just ran around, and he has to do it 3 times a night for 4 days in a row. He gets pretty tired. So,
right.
So, and what we didn't realize, the person. Let me tell you, the other secret was this curtain that we lifted up like this was done by someone else, not the person running around.
Right.
And this is how we did it. We recruited one person each night from 6:30. The show opened up at 8. 6:30 would be on the stage, laying underneath that curtain for 3 hours.
Oh wow!
And he was there for one purpose and one purpose only, to lift it up like this so his hands could stay there.
Yeah.
And then when we drop the curtain, the curtain falls down and he falls on the floor, and the curtain goes over him, and he just lays on the stage. He's there the whole time. I'm there's no teleportation. The other guy just goes behind it and just runs around to the back of the building and comes in. So it was pretty simple, setup, and when I read these tricks, I was really moved, oh, these are just very simple things. because teleportation doesn't exist, and neither does AGI at this point, where this thing is just going to create this macro problem from 2 sentences into the next great company. It's just not going to happen because magic doesn't exist. Everything is built upon stuff.
Which really wants to know when we're having a magic stream.
No, I've done that. I've been there.
And 17 euros now.
I can't do that.
And Ben says you're secretly over here about Doctor Strange. Yeah, where is the cape? You need to show up with the cape next time. I mean, if there's no cape on the next stream, this is going to be a disappointment.
Yeah. So like, in my varied lives, I do, and then this is what I'll give you hope for before we leave here, is in my varied life, I have built things because I wanted to do them. And I built a magic show, and I've done other things. And now some of these have varying levels of success. Some of them aren't that successful. And, a one-run magic show with 10,000 people sounds great, but,
right.
It cost me more money to make it than it did to generate revenue, but it was fun. Right. And I think if you think coding is fun, you should enter this career because they'll pay you a lot of money to do something that you have fun doing every single day. So that's my advice is forget the robots, forget the AI, forget all that other stuff. If you feel like you can do this and you want to do it, you should go after it.
Yep. So I was gonna mention the Prestige, Ben, and I'm not gonna put your comment up because spoilers. Yep. I was gonna mention the Prestige.
For Nolan.
If you've never seen The Prestige, please don't read Ben's comment and please go watch the movie because it's really, really, really good. It's Christopher Nolan and it is really, really, really good. And it's about magic.
The Prestige, we actually modeled some of the language you used in my magic show around the language we found in the Prestige movie.
Oh, really?
Full disclosure. Yeah, so the reveal, the turn, and like we use those classic things in there. I will tell you this, and this is my movie review. There are 5 movies in my life that I think you should watch. Number 1, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The first Star Wars, 1977, New Hope. And I think The Prestige is up there. I think it's the best Christopher Nolan movie ever. And if you don't know the answer coming in, when you see the end,
you're like, oh, it's so good. That's what I'm saying. No spoilers. Like, don't watch it being spoiled because it's really, really good.
And it's so well done. So like, there's movies like this, like The Sixth Sense, that doesn't play well over time because it's like, they trick
if you've seen it once, it's like, okay.
Christopher Nolan doesn't trick you. That's the thing about this that is so good. It's the best movie, one of the top 5 movies ever made, in my opinion, and that's coming pretty strong. I mean, a lot of movies ever made.
The comments off. Nice. Nice. Just in case, you never know. I don't want to be responsible for spoiling a movie. I know it's been out like 15 years or something silly, but maybe even longer. It might even be longer. I don't know. But it's a great movie.
But it's got Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman's in it. Michael Caine. It's super well acted.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everyone in it's famous now. I mean, like, it is crazy, crazy, crazy good. Like, and my wife hates the movie because of the ending. But I love it because it's like, that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, that's true because it gives because I could see that. You might think it's mystical or something, but it gives you a real answer in a real to a kind of except I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to talk about it, but it's good though. It's good. It's very, very, very good. Let's see, off topic, would you ever start a Code of Foundry Destiny 2 clan? I'm sure there are other people here that play too.
Hey, you know what, Dylan? Send Kevin an email. I would love to. If you're in Destiny 2, we are doing the world's first raid run. If that's you, I do need 2 people. It's in next month. But we do want raiders that have done it before. So if you want to be in a Destiny 2 clan, I'll invite you to the clan that I'm in. I can't switch the clan that I'm in, but I'll invite you in.
There you go.
But yeah, we'll give you the details. I don't want to give it out here publicly, but but yeah. Okay. I'd love to play Destiny with some coder guys.
If you want to go join Discord if you're not there already and DM me. I'm at Doyle and I'll put you in touch.
We'll tell you how to get in touch with me, and then maybe we can play some Destiny. That'd be kind of cool. We have the best clan name ever. So anyway, it's kind of cool.
Okay. ChatGPT is summarizing code on Stack Overflow. It cannot solve new problems in complex systems. When you put Copilot on a brownfield, ugly code base, it suggests madness 9 times at a time. Yeah, that's one of the things that we've definitely seen that too.
And then what Luke is talking about brownfield is greenfield is brand new, does pretty good. The moment you have something built
Yeah.
and you have like 45 files or even 1,000 files or whatever to deal with 80. It just doesn't work. I mean, like, it is so far from doing that. And I made this joke before. Like, I remember I was in the bank. We had probably 120 people at Wachovia on the floor that I was in. They were all coders, 120 of us. Yeah. And I can remember us trying to integrate with the mainframe, and I don't remember the guy's name, so I'm just going to use a funny name. It's not his real name, but like, we had to know how certain things were sent from the mainframe or whatever. And they're like, go ask Carl. And I'm like, you mean all of like knowledge of the bank is wrapped in Carl? Yes, and they're like,
of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Let me guess. Carl's not very helpful, is he?
No, he's not.
I knew it. I just knew it. Carl's the guy who's like, he's hoarded all this information for years and he's never giving any of it out, despite he's the only guy that has all the information. There's always a Carl.
Carl looked like the guy in the first Jurassic Park movie, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Like, he's kind of heavy. He's grumpy. He's desk was a mess. Guy. Yep. And you're just like, dude, I just want to know how.
How did I know that was going to be Carl? That's too funny.
So Carl, I don't remember his name. I'm glad I don't, because if I mention his name now, he's probably still there.
What if it is Carl? What if it's some subliminal thing in the back of your mind? It's Carl, but you just, I don't know. Maybe it's Carl. Carl's out here now. Carl's gonna come in a second and be like, "Yo, Bobby, what's up?"
Bobby.
I'm not like that anymore.
I'm not like that. I've went away from COBOL. I learned something else.
That's funny.
So,
good ways and not so good ways to use ChatGPT. Like, there are good ways and not good ways to search Google. Exactly.
100%.
That's it, Ridge Raider. Exactly. It is just another tool, and there are good ways to use it. We've talked about this off stream, but it's good at micro. It's terrible at macro.
So, like, if you can get really, really specific and ask it really specific things, it can sometimes do really well. The broader that prompt is, and the more larger the answer it has to encompass, the less valuable it is. And this is why, because Kevin, it's really just saying, what's the probability of the next letter or word in this sentence?
Right.
And the broader that is, the more information it has to pick, the less accurate its prediction is. So trust me, it's just predicting the next word. Which is why
it can't do simple. Code. That's why it can't do simple multiplication. Because, like you said,
it's not
the way
multiplying
it's trained,
the numbers.
It's not multiplying the numbers. It's looked at all of its history of whatever it's looked at, and it said, well, clearly this is the answer. And it's not.
Right.
It took a guess.
It's not the answer. It's a guess at the best. And then it looks like it's real. So, like, that's the problem. So in micro, it can do really well. So, like, if you need to know how to write, a reverse a string in JavaScript or something really small like that, and you can define it really well, it'll spit out the correct answer most of the time.
Well, because it's read 50 other versions of
the moment it comes into a problem it's never seen before, something, and this is the problem, is that every coding problem in when you're doing full stack development is very similar to other coding problems. In other words, like, real coders will say, oh, that's just like this. It's not just like that. It's not
identical. Like, there's a line you can draw. I think you've used this before, where you ask somebody to change like the propeller on an airplane versus a wheel on a car. While they are very similar, they are also very different.
Very different. And so the abstract thinker can, like, humans can immediately go, oh, here's the simulators between that. Oh, I've got that. I'll figure it out. Yep. You mean all I have to do is implement a link statement that pulls back the records ordered by date? Yes. Well, the link statement's different. The objects are different. Everything else is different. But they look at the other piece of code and they go, oh, okay, it's just like that. Well, it's not identical. So, like, ChatGPT has to look at that and then predict what the next line is, because it doesn't know that it's just like that. It just guesses what the next thing is. And that's when it's not specific and it's broad, it kind of falls apart.
Yep.
So
we kind of joked about this the other day too. Ben says there'll be a lot of scammy contractors that end up requiring does not use AI on the job description. Yeah, we talked about this. There'll be like stickers on stuff that says not created by AI or like real human coded. Like, it's gonna be that's gonna be the sticker. It's gonna go, oh yeah, that's a high quality item. That's great. It's like the ice cream shop where it says
the ice cream shop is down the street from us here at the Coder Foundry is like hand dipped ice cream. Like, in other words, it's not like out of this, not the soft serve. Like, we scooped this out. Which
exactly.
Is like,
there was human interaction here. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Right.
That'll be a thing. But I could see that definitely being a thing for sure. We joke, but I mean, yeah.
Definitely.
Let's see. Eduardo says, if you want to get paid more as a dev, would you be a specialist or a generalist?
So here's what I think, and my advice goes to people breaking in for the first time. Okay, the very first job is be as specific down to the stack and apply for those jobs. Okay, and then you're going to be a .NET dev, for example, if you code the code around ASP.NET dev, I'm going to apply for .NET jobs, and I'm going to get a .NET job. You build a career up. You're 5 or 6 years from this. You may have other interests, and you could jump to another stack because you learned it, and people will give you the benefit of the doubt. You're never going to be a generalist. The job you're doing will always be based on something specific that you're trying to build. So that could be a website, one contractor, one company, and then it's a mobile site on another. And broadly, you look like a generalist. But when you're interviewing, you need to tell them, I can build this with the stuff that you're using. And so when you interview, you're going to have to be a specialist. Now, you may know lots of things to build up our career, but most of the time we end up in a place where we're building websites with a particular stack, and that's what we become comfortable with, and that's what we know how to do. And a lot of times we'll jump ship to different things.
Yep.
But we always end up being a specialist at the end of the day, even though I've got a broad experience. I've done a lot of things.
I think that's
I'm not coding in Power Builder anymore.
I think that's what happens, isn't it? I think initially you start out a specialist, then you become more of a generalist, and then you end up as a specialist again. It's like if you looked at that chart, that's how it would go. Yeah, that's how it would go. Yeah.
Right. And all I'm saying is, as you build a career out, look at the screen shifts to make sure that you can always be a specialist and not have to always code or interview with, I could pick that up in a matter of weeks. No problem. And even if you're a 15-year vet, if the other guy comes in and he knows it exactly, you lose out on sometimes in those interview situations. So you're always going to be interviewing as a specialist, even though you have a broad experience level. The more things you know, the better. You're definitely gonna get paid more, but you'll be paid because you solve problems. And problem solving always is going to involve a specific stack at the moment in time you're doing it. I think so. Now, you could be a consultant, and they pay you a lot because you know a lot about a lot of things. So that's my 2 cents.
You're gonna have a lot of opportunity to talk about this. That's all I'm gonna say.
You're gonna have opportunities to talk about this. We'll talk to you in a little bit.
Yeah, that's something we definitely that's a topic for future. Here we go. It's the quality of one's convictions that determines success, not the number of followers.
That's probably true. I mean, like, you got to be ignore the crowd think a lot of times and do what makes you happy, and then be comfortable with the results of that. And the cool thing about America is, and the reason I love this country and a lot of people bring it down, is like, you really can reinvent yourself and start over all the time. You can just start things. I mean, like, me and Kevin had this same conversation. Like, I'm just going to do this, and I'm getting ready to do something new. And we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, this is great. I can just start this thing. I'm just going to do it. And no, I'm not making another magic show. But like,
that's the next thing. Who knows where we're going?
That's a trail of tears there for me, for sure. So like, but it was fun while we were doing it, but like, never again. But like, I do think that you have to be convicted about, like, I'm going to do this, and not let people, because of likes and followers and other things, distract you from your your ultimate goal. I think I heard something like Stan Lee initial idea when he went to his publishers. He wrote Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was a bad idea. To his publisher, and they said, you can't make us a hero based on the spider. People hate spiders. And then he made the most successful hero in modern history, because he believed in his idea, and he didn't get distracted by the followers and the people. The trailblazers seemingly always win anyway, but just be convicted, and then just follow your convictions and do what you need to do, and that determines your success. You're right on, Adam, for sure.
Okay. Shayamanta, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I really apologize. I used to build PHP sites in college, but joined in other job outside of IT. Okay, now I want to be a web dev. What should I learn? React / Angular to break into web dev to get my first development job. Okay,
I think you could pick either one.
But make sure you pick one that's in demand and where you want to work.
Yeah, Angular, React, ASP.NET, they're all in demand. Like, I think ASP.NET has more opportunities, but hey, go for React, go for Angular. Pick one, learn it well, go deep, build some applications on it, and show it. You don't need to learn both. You learn one and then interview for React jobs or interview for Angular jobs. Now, depending on where you live, if you're interviewing locally, hey, take a look and see what they're using around you. Are there any companies using React? Are there any companies using Angular? So, but you definitely can do that.
Just going back to Luke's question about contracting on CV too, because N17 Heroes has been contracting since '99. Loads on my CV. If you have a contract, it doesn't matter. If you expressively want perm, then there are ways to phrase things.
Yes, you have to sell it, and he's right. And you're not lying. You're selling it. I contracted for a long time before I started Coder Foundry and Cortex. So like, I did my term contracting, and I liked it. I always told people like, and it turned into a consulting company for me. So I never really ended doing it. But when people would always say, so you were at, the Dixie Classic Fairgrounds for 6 months for the city of Winston. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why did you leave? And I'm like, well, the contract ended. And they're like, why didn't you get renewed? And I was like, well, I wrote the ticketing system and it's finished.
And it's done. Yeah.
They're like, there's, it's kind of funny. That thing I wrote like 10 years ago, they're still using that dumb thing. Like I go to the Dixie Classic Fair and they're still using that to send the tickets out. It's kind of funny because
now it's something else, isn't it? I forgot what they called it.
Yeah.
Is it the
lady across the street in my neighborhood is the general manager or whatever for the Dixie Classic Fair. She always comes and brings me tickets every year.
Oh, that's funny.
And I always ask them, you still using that website? That and they're like, yeah. I'm like, really?
That's
hasn't
amazing.
been rewritten yet?
That's amazing. Hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
I guess not. So
that's funny. Okay. Gobernath says, I am junior developer. How to take control of 2023 to kickstart as a senior developer? What skills are needed? So how do you go from junior to senior?
Okay, that's what he's saying. So that's going to base around a couple things to be seniors is the skill set that you have has to be really good. Number two, can you design things? Can you take it from a blank page and put the system together in a way? And the third underrated skill, I think, for senior developers is can you communicate that to upper management? So can you sell your ideas, sell your architecture? Can you communicate it in a way that makes them feel comfortable? A lot of times as we get more technical, we get at odds with the non-technical people all the time. And these non-technical people typically control the purse strings. And you've got to play I wouldn't say play the game. I would say build relationships with people. And then they'll put you in those positions where you want to do it. So, but senior devs can build things from scratch and interact with others really well. So hope that helps.
Okay, this is kind of a similar question really, I guess too. But I've learned Java. I feel so in the beginning of programming, and I want to know how to take programming skill to the next level.
Build better projects, build bigger projects, take on things that they're more difficult to do. So if we're saying Java, I'm assuming web. So build the bug tracker in Java. I mean, so a bug tracker is something we do here at Learn.Coder Foundry. It's a pretty difficult project to build. You could look into that. But challenge yourself by taking on more complex things and solving more complex problems. Now that you know the language pretty well, what other types of things can I build on my own and then show those to employers, and then you get a new job and you get more pay.
I think it's doubling down on what you know, isn't it? That's kind of a good advice here. Instead of chasing kind of the latest like JavaScript framework, because I always pick on JavaScript frameworks. Don't chase the one that came out last week, because you might think, oh wow, I'm going to learn the latest, greatest thing over here, and that's what I should be learning next. But you could just easily double down on Java and make something more complex.
Right. And so Java, if you're a back-end programmer, you can add Spring MVC to the front of that and make MVC sites for that. So you become a full stack developer. There's lots of opportunities in there for Java. Obviously, Java's being phased out of mobile development, but I mean, still lots of opportunities there. So it depends on what you want to build and what you're trying to build. Build more complex things.
Definitely. Before we wrap up, I just want to thank everybody who super chatted with us today.
Oh, thanks, Bree, Luke, Coding After 30, Paul, No Justice, and Luke again. Luke did 2 today.
He did. Thank you so much for those. We super appreciate it. We can definitely get tacos with that. We can go for like a sit down taco.
Yeah. And I can do it. For my next trip, Kevin, I'm going to make these tacos disappear.
I can do that while I make stuff disappear where I throw it over my shoulder. I'm really good at that trick.
Yeah, exactly.
That's about the extent of my magic. My magical powers.
But you'll be surprised that a lot of those disappearing tricks, that's what they're doing.
Yes. So, you know this, but I bet a lot of people here don't know. I saw Penn and Teller in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And I had front row seats to Penn and Teller in Vegas. And I will tell you, it is a way better show on the front seats if you want to know how everything works than it is at the back. I was part of one of the tricks, and it was one of those things where I could see how the trick worked. And I'm just like, and I'm still part of it, but it was great. It was so good to see everything so close. To be like, oh, that's amazing. It's so good. It was the best.
Yeah.
I literally had there's 2 seats at the very front, and I got the 2 seats, and I booked them well in advance. And it was an amazing, amazing show. But I will say, like, to be behind the curtain, it's a different experience. And it was really good. Experience. It was really, really good. If you like that stuff, if you ever get to Vegas, go see the Penn and Teller show if they're playing. Sit at the back, sit at the front, whatever. Both entertaining shows. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So much fun.
All right, cool. Well, I think we went over a little bit. Only 106. All right, cool.
Yeah, only a little bit. So, yeah, we'll be back again next week. We may have some new stuff to talk about before then, maybe after then, not sure yet. We'll see. But yeah, some new content coming out at some point. We'll have a new video on here. We'll maybe have some other stuff too to talk about. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, good luck and keep coding, and don't believe the naysayers. Keep doing it. This is a job that you should pursue for sure. Keep after it. See you guys later.
See you guys later.